Hi, I'm Clara. I feel very silly right now, sitting in my living room with my window open so all my neighbors can see me run back and forth from the camera and couch and try takes again. But I'm starting a knitting podcast, so very, very exciting. We're starting super low tech, so filming with my iPhone, no microphone. Right now I'm looking at my iPhone, which is stacked up on a chair, a bunch of boxes, and some books. So hopefully everything looks okay and sounds okay. But the focus is, of course, going to be on the knitting, so I promise to bring the quality there. So to introduce myself, again, my name's Clara. I am a knitter who is 23 years old, and I grew up in Maryland in the States. Right now, I'm living near the Chesapeake Bay, working as a marine biologist, and in all my extra time, I am basically obsessed with making things from string. So I spend my time knitting garments, occasionally writing some patterns. I do a little spinning, I do a little crochet, and then I try to teach all of my friends and everyone in my life to knit as well, so they can hang out with me and knit and chat. Last year I lived abroad the whole year, and I was kind of hopping from country to country every few months. So it was really nice to look back and see those little periods of my life. And maybe I lived somewhere for a couple years and visited a local yarn shop there, got some really special yarn, and then made something. And that was encapsulating my memory of that place. And now that I'm settled in one place, I brought all those memories back, and I'm making new ones and making new patterns. So the focus of this podcast is I'm gonna try to not only do standard what I'm making, works in progress, finished objects, try to do some things that are a little out of the box, but just for the first one, I've been deep into knitting YouTube for like the last 6 months or something. So I'm definitely very influenced by Any Knits and those twins who knit and Hit Knit Hooray and a bunch of people like that. So I'm just gonna do a very standard knitting podcast for my first one. So let's get into it. My first finished object I actually finished today, and I don't know if you could technically call it finished because it doesn't have the buttons on yet. It is the Maggie cardigan by Petite Knit. So it's just a very simple cardigan with a round neckline and short sleeves. And my mom and I this year started a tradition where on Christmas Eve we do a pattern together and we cast it on Christmas Eve, and then I make her a version and she makes me a version. So the reason that I don't have the buttons on this right now is because she ordered the buttons for both of us, which are really cute, and I'll put a picture up on the screen. And I need to go see her to put those buttons on. So first I'll start by talking a little bit about the yarn. I have just a little left over. Hopefully you can see it here. It's this really beautiful tweedy light lavender with kind of cool undertones. I picked this up when I was living in Maine for college at the Mother of Pearl yarn shop, which was like my go-to favorite knitting store when I lived there. And when I saw this, I just thought that the color was so gorgeous. I couldn't go home without it. It has little flecks of like blue and pink in kind of the icy lavender. And it's an interesting yarn because it's 50% plant fiber, and I'll put the specifics up. And then the other 50% is wool. It's by the Green Mountain Spinnery, and the color is 6612 Blue Opal. So I'll put that information up. And I had 6 skeins in stash because I planned to make something for myself, and I did that ages ago and underbought. So when I did the math for what I needed for the Maggie cardigan, I realized I was going to be playing like a very much losing game of yarn chicken, and I bought one more skein. And it came in and it was way more blue toned than the purple of the original quantity that I got, which totally makes sense because it's from a small company, and I had ordered the original 2 years ago. So what will you expect? I'm just happy they're still carrying it. But it really worked out because I used that extra skein, which I still have like half of right here, to just do the plackets, so the 2 button bands and the neckline. And you can kind of see the difference. I don't know if you can on camera, but I think it kind of provides a cool effect and makes the plackets really pop. So I really enjoyed working with the yarn. I'm definitely more of a rustic, untreated 100% wool kind of girly. So this was different for me because it did have that half fiber composition. So I'm gonna be looking forward to going back to like all wool. But it gave the cardigan a really nice drape. And I enjoyed it. I would highly recommend it. I think it's absolutely gorgeous, especially if you love like a subtle tweed, kind of like what Noro gives you. All right, so now about the pattern. I don't know how much that's new and original I can really say about the Maggie cardigan because it's petite knit and so many people have knitted her pattern. She has a million of them and they're all really well done in my experience. I think it was super well explained. It was actually my first time doing a saddle shoulder construction. So it was nice using a pattern that I was pretty confident was going to be accurate. And I was familiar with the writing style and trusted it. And I think the saddle shoulder ended up looking really good. I haven't blocked it yet, so you can kind of see like a little extra bump right here around where I picked up along the saddle to get the arms, but hopefully that will block out. And then this was also my first time working a cardigan flat. I've done a steeked cardigan with some let lopi, which is really unspun yarn from Iceland, so it wasn't too scary to steek because they stick together really well. But this one, no steeking is involved. So basically what you do is you knit flat for everything except the arms. Also, if you hear some background noise, that's my cat running wild. So sorry about that. Hopefully he'll make an appearance. Yeah, so I think even though it was a super easy pattern, it was a little boring. And I think I'm ready for some challenge in my next one, just because you're knitting flat in the entire body. Here, she's a little scrunched up. You're gonna have basically this ginormous rectangle where you're just knitting back and forth in stockinette, and because it's flat, you have to do a lot of purl rows, which unfortunately aren't my favorite. I'm also not the fastest knitter because I don't knit continental. I should probably learn, but it's okay. I think because I was making it for my mom and she was making it for me, it was definitely a labor of love, and I was really motivated to get it done. I realized like halfway through that she had been racing me and I had not been racing her. I had just been knitting, and she's like, "Oh, you're beating me, you're beating me." And then I put it to the side for a couple of weeks because I have a Chowgu interchangeable needle set, and one of the cords that I needed broke, so I had to get another pair. And then she sped up and she finished it. She's like, "I beat you." Okay, now I guess I have to finish it really fast. So I did the plackets in like less than 48 hours. Just a couple sessions of knitting, and I was so ready to get it off the needles. Luckily, I've already woven in a lot of the ends. I just have like 2 left to weave in. That's another thing I'll say about saddle shoulders. It wasn't too bad in this one, but another one, which I'll talk about in the whip section, had like a million ends. So that's definitely something that I'll just keep in mind in the future, but I think saddle shoulders look really elegant, and that's not gonna stop me from knitting them. All right, so that was the Maggie cardigan, and that is my only finished object I have with me. I did realize like halfway through talking about that I forgot to tell you what I was wearing. This is one of my pride and joys that I've knitted because It's made in 100% cashmere, which I picked up when I visited my friend Lily in Vienna, Austria. And we went to this yarn store that was just absolutely gorgeous. I hope I can find some pictures to show you guys, but it was in this amazing, like outside this brick kind of castle-y building, and then it just had floor-to-ceiling yarn. And since it was in Austria, there were all these brands that I had never seen before. One of them was this brand of yarn that was sustainably farmed cashmere. I think it was from Kyrgyzstan. And it was like $40 a skein, and I got 2 of them, and it came in a worsted and like a lace fingering. And I got the one that was super light because it was just more bang for my buck, and I couldn't afford to buy more than like a skein or 2. So I got 2 skeins, and I knit it to absolutely the very end of that amount. And it was in this absolutely gorgeous mustard yellow, and I hope you guys can see it. But it is the Oolong pattern, and that is by Amy Scher on Ravelry. And it has this gorgeous kind of V-neck, like a soft V-neck with lace down the middle in this leaf design. So it's like 2 vines down a central just garter stitch section, and then the rest is in stockinette. And since it's just like a little tank, it didn't use too much yarn. I just did really basic 2x2 rib arms, or I don't know what you would call that, like ribbing on the arms and on the bottom. So really what makes this special is just the lace section and then what it's made of. And I wanted to pick a pattern that was as special as the yarn, so I thought this was really beautiful. Since it is in cashmere, it keeps me really warm. So even though it's like this thin, it's tiny, and it's so light, I'm almost sweating like inside right now, and it is February. So yeah, love that. It's a great piece. I highly recommend that pattern. I made it so long ago that all I remember is that it kind of took me forever because it was so thin, such thin yarn. But because it has that lace pattern, it kind of keeps you going and you're motivated to just finish the repeats and get through the body. Okay, so now I mentioned I had one more finished object, and I unfortunately do not have that with me because I finished it in like record time as a Valentine's Day gift. So I had to explain the sweater curse to him. There's no mittens curse that I've heard of yet, knock on wood. So I made him a pair of colorwork mittens, and because it needed to fit a male hand, I did it in kind of a heavy worsted yarn, because free patterns, there's a lot of amazing free patterns for mittens, especially in the traditional colorwork charted style, but usually they just come in one size, and you kind of have to figure it out by sizing your needles or your gauge up or down to fit a smaller or bigger hand. And even me, like, I have fairly normal to slightly large woman's hands, and I always have to size up for mine because I don't know what they're made to fit. But yeah, I had to go up to worsted yarn, but that also made them a faster knit. It was the Garden Party Mittens by Mika Haller, and it was this beautiful pair of mittens with little birds, and 2 of them are facing together and 2 of them are facing away, and there's a little heart in the middle. And I thought it would be perfect for Valentine's Day. And I picked 2 colors of Unity worsted. Oh, we have a visit. Tombo's brought some yarn. He wants me to talk about this yarn apparently, but we've been graced by his presence, so hopefully he doesn't cause too much chaos. Here, I'll show you to him. This is Tombo, he's my son. Anyways, we'll let him hang out. Oh, he's gone. Anyways, so I was using their garnet colorway, which is this deep burgundy red, and their natural colorway, which is a really lovely cream, and that provided a lot of contrast. The inspiration was the Liverpool Football Club, which is a soccer team in England, and they have like a little bird as their mascot, and I thought that the pattern looked like that mascot, and then it also I did it in the colors. So I call that a success. The pictures I put on the screen, it wasn't blocked in any of them. I did not have time to take a picture after they were blocked. Like, I gave them to him when they were still damp from steam blocking. But that's okay. That's just it. You'll have to trust me that they looked neat and gorgeous and pointy. All right, so now we're moving on to whips, my works in progress. Usually I am an incredibly monogamous knitter. I'll have one project and I will only work on that and just knit on it until I'm finished and then move to the next one. But I think I have been so influenced, obviously, since I'm starting a podcast, by knitting podcasts, that I wanted to have a couple going at the same time to kind of spice things up. That got a little overwhelming because especially when I was trying to finish my mom's cardigan, I kept getting distracted by like mittens and my intense Ravelry queue and the concept of a make 9. But it's fun now because I get to talk about a couple things, and now that I just cast something off, I have 2 current whips that I've already started on and I can just keep flowing through. So back to my whips. I am definitely in mitten mode. Before I made those garden party mittens, I made my first pair of mittens, which was the something folklore mittens. I will put it up, and I made them for my mom too, for Christmas. And I was just having so much fun that I started that second pair for Valentine's Day, and then I also applied for a test knit. So there's a designer called Anna-Sofia Vintersol that I follow on Instagram, and I think she made this pattern that was called the Goose Giselda hood, and it was this adorable little like hood slash bonnet with these almost storybook character colorwork geese on either side. And it was just so adorable, and she put out a tester call for making a sweater of that, and then also for a new pattern which had a little fish motif, and she wanted someone or a group of people to test knit those as mittens. And I just thought it was so perfect because I'm a marine biologist, so you know, fish is kind of my personality trait other than knitting. And then I wanted to keep learning how to make colorwork mittens. So long story short, I'm now in the tester group for what she's calling the Lily of the Lure mittens. And they're absolutely adorable. This is what mine looks like so far. I'm like halfway through the first mitten. You can see the front, the pictures coming along. It's like a central little fishy, and then there's a fishbone on either side. So I hope you can see that okay. And then on the back, I really like this. It's very striking. It's literally just, I guess it's striping, if you will. It's just like little vertical stripes. And then there's some increases right here for the thumb gusset. I really love on these, I haven't knit a million mittens, obviously. I've just knit those 2. But the one that I did had the thumb like really far to the center, and one had it all the way to the other side like this one is. And I like the one that was all the way to the other side because then your thumb is allowed to go out from the hand instead of like having to sit like that. I just separated and left the live stitches for the thumb, and from here it'll be a piece of cake now that I'm back on them and done with the Maggie. I just love doing color work because you get to see the picture develop line by line, and it just flies through. It kind of reminds me of the Caitlin Hunter pattern, which is the halibut. It's like very similar in the simplicity of the little fish. Also, you know, how many patterns are there out there with fish? I have knit the halibut before. I actually need to reblock that sweater because it's looking crazy right now. I made the mistake of putting it up on a hanger. But I think it would just be so cute to wear these mittens with that sweater and like, I don't know, go to the beach in the winter or go to work every day and be extra marine biology-y. So yeah, I am really enjoying being in that test group. someone in the test group finished it in like 2 days, and I had not even picked the yarn that I did it with. So kudos to that person for being just incredibly speedy. I'm definitely being a little bit slower. The patterns due at, or our feedback and finished photos are due at the end of the month. So I think that's super reasonable and feasible for a small project. I'll probably be done with these by the end of the week, just because, I don't know, I have the knitting mojo since I just cast something off that took me forever. And oh, I didn't talk about yarn. So she called for a DK weight, and I had this in stash like forever. And it is the sweetest teal superwash merino, and it has little tan and cream tweedy flecks in it. I hope you can see that okay. And it is called, I wrote it down, it's by Rising Tide Fiber Co. and it's their Calvert DK. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. You know, I've been wanting to use this up, and it's a DK. So then I got a contrast color white to hold with it. That was another DK. And I knit just like up to here with it, like the very beginning of the cuff, and immediately I could tell that they were just incredibly different weights. So I think this DK, quote unquote, is really a worsted, which is fine because, as I said, like I usually have to size up anyways to make mittens, to make them fit my hands. I just hope it's okay with the test knit because she did call for a DK, and this is definitely a worsted. So it did work out though, because I got to use the rest of this Unity worsted, which is 100% wool, non-superwash, but they go so well together. And I had this left over from another pair of mittens. I'm using it for the contrast color, and it's really nice. I think it looks really striking, especially in the back. And I like how, because this has some variation and tweediness in it, I'm holding it with something that's just super plain and high contrast. So you can see the adorable little fishy pattern. Tombo, my cat, is looking at the strings. We'll see if we can get him to jump up. There we go. There we go. He's very helpful. Okay, so he'll work on that whip, and we can pull out my second whip, which is definitely quite more substantial. So I'll start with the yarn before you see what I'm making, because I had this in stash. First I had this in stash, which I thought was a mohair. It's actually a hand-painted Surrey alpaca. I also got it from Mother of Pearl in Freeport, Maine, like 2 or 3 years ago, because at the time, I think I was in college, and I went there like once a week with my friends to do their knitting circle, and I saw that they had an all mohair, like super loose and airy sweater on display. And I thought, oh, I'll make that because it'll be super affordable and I only need to hold one strand of this. So I got a sweater quantity of just this. I never ended up making that. I don't think that's something I would wear at all. Or I don't know, never say never, but I don't know. I didn't know about like holding a mohair with yarn yet and what the different qualities were when you did hold it and how it could enhance a pattern and give some fuzziness and structure and support, versus holding it alone and how kind of translucent that can look. So yeah, I just have this sitting around and it's absolutely gorgeous. It is the Touch Yarns Possum Silk Merino. Oh no, that is a lie. It is the Alpaca Yarn Company Halo watercolors in the colorway Seascape. And it is so beautiful. Sorry, he is eating a plant and being troublesome. So we'll just hold him here. But yeah, it's this kind of like tealy green blue base that's very light, and it has little strands of brown in it, and it really reminds me of seaweed or like a kelp forest. And I just think it's so beautiful. And then I got this yarn. Last summer I was living and working in New Zealand, and there they have a different kind of possum than we have in the States. So American possums, I think they're so cute, and this is not what those are. They're brown, and they are an invasive, and they're a pest, and there's a whole industry there around killing them, hunting them, and turning their fur into yarns. This is definitely not like vegan yarn or vegetarian yarn by any means, but their possum fiber is like a luxury, and it's actually environmentally friendly because these possums are really bad for the environment and the native fauna of New Zealand. So anyways, that was a little, ecological backstory, which I'm probably going to be giving sometimes, I'm sorry. But here it is a possum merino, which is like the thing to get if you're ever in New Zealand. It is so soft, it is so lustrous and gorgeous, and it's in this bluey green again. This is the one that's the Touch Yarns Possum Silk. Merino 4-ply solids, and the color is called Mineral. And I didn't know what to do with this either. And that just shows that I actually need to go through my yarn stash, because these two are so, so perfect together. They just go together perfectly. And also are both like such luxury yarn. It makes me feel really special. And I haven't gotten this out of the bag in a while because I've been on other things. But I am making an all over cable sweater, which is the My Favorite Things knitwear sweater number 29. So you can see it has these super simple 3x3 cables all over it. And it is it is a saddle shoulder construction. So you make two little rectangles that are just a couple cables long. You pick up stitches along the end of those, then you do your back, you do your front, and you join in the round. I've just gotten to the point where you join in the round, and now it's gonna be smooth sailing. I'm so excited to have this as my main garment that I'm working on. The only thing that I'm worried about, and why I put it in the bag and have not taken it out, I am usually a size medium or a size small, and the amount of yarn I had in stash for this was only enough to make the size small and not the size medium. And I thought because the pattern had in a lot of positive ease, it would be fine to make the small. But now when I'm holding it up, it looks really small. Like it looks like it would fit me, but kind of close to skin, which is not what I wanted. So I think it looks gorgeous, and I love the way the fabric and the cabling is working out, but I definitely want to give it a mid-project block or an early project block. I am definitely not in the middle of this project yet. Just to let the cables expand a little and relax and see if that gives it some more ease. And that would definitely soothe me and give me like the gusto to finish the rest of the body, which I think is going to be a really satisfying knit because it's in the round, unlike the Maggie cardigan. And it's just like, okay, finish this cable, and then by then you're done. I would go back and just say, okay, you know what, I'll play yarn chicken and do the medium, but this is the pattern where I was kind of griping about the amount of ends. You cut the yarn so much at the beginning of this pattern. It is ridiculous. Like you cut it in each shoulder, and then you go one way and you cut it, and like you go back, and then you do different pieces and you cut those, and you go forward, you cut it, you go forward, you cut it, you do the front. So I think I cut the yarn like 8 times or something. And it's also held with a Surrey alpaca. So I just think this would be not fun at all to frog and then piece together the yarn and start over. And I think since I'm already short on yarn to make the medium, having to weave in all of those ends from those itty bitty sections would make me even shorter. So I'm just gonna block it, make it, and if it doesn't fit me, I will give it to my cousin or my friend. So lucky them if they get this, because I really want this. But yeah, that is all I have on the needles right now. Thank you so much for watching. I have a lot of things that I would like to knit soon, and it's all from stash. I'm in a time and place right now where I've just moved and I'm working 6 days a week and I cannot afford to buy a lot of new yarn. So that gives me extra motivation to knit from stash, which has just been growing and growing, especially with the last year where I was living abroad and I just justified everything by saying, oh, I'll never be back here. Let me get a sweater quantity. The good thing is I was buying wisely, like I was checking against patterns and getting a correct amount, not just like a couple skeins here and there that don't really fit anything except for like a Sophie scarf. They're definitely, I probably am gonna make some of those again, but I just totally blanked. Those will be coming up soon, and I expect to have many things more on the needle during this cozy winter season. But thank you so much for watching. I'd love to know if anyone is making something similar, what you guys have on the needles, if you have similar or different experiences with any of the patterns I've tried. Thank you so much. Have a great day.